In other news, aid workers from the Midlands have flown to Pakistan to help some of the 33 million people affected by the country's worst humanitarian crisis in decades. An estimated 1/3 of the country has been left underwater after an unprecedented monsoon season brought more than 6 times the average rainfall.
Well, the team from the charity Muslim Hands are providing food, water and medical packages in the Sindh province, which is one of the worst affected areas. Our reporter Lewis Warner has joined them and he can speak to us from Pakistan's largest city, Karachi. Lewis, well, a long way for the team to travel, but clearly they really wanted to help.
Yes, it is a long way, but they are solely focused on the emergency efforts that this crisis demands. At the moment, it's simply about keeping people alive for as long as possible. The water that fell here on the ground about a month ago is still here, stopping those who survived from getting access to clean water, food and medicine. That water will be around for some months to come, but the death toll does keep on rising. It currently stands at more than 1,500, but these days people don't die from drowning, they die from starvation or waterborne diseases. As far as the eye can see, these tarpaulin sheets do their best to offer protection from the sun to those living on the side of the road. Their fields reminiscent of lakes, so deep the water turns choppy, creating an ever-present danger. Marco's 18-year-old son Parvez went missing during heavy monsoon rain 3 weeks ago.
A local man came running to look for my son. He recovered his body and we tried to revive him, but sadly he had already died. I am overcome by grief.
The place Parvez was buried is now 10 feet underwater. 33 million people have been affected by these floods, forcing many to make shelter elsewhere. Show me around your home. Mohammed lives with his wife and children in the district of Badin. They were forced to flee their home when the monsoon rain fell so heavily for so long. What happened to your old house?
Our lands have been destroyed and we are left with nothing. The rain and water has made us homeless. There is still water everywhere and you can see everyone is trying to save themselves.
What do you hope will happen in the future?
You need to understand that water may stay for 6 or 7 months, so we have to stay here for another 8 months, and it's not a good place to stay.
The only aid offered is snapped up, but in an orderly fashion. Haifa is from Alum Rock in Birmingham. She's an aid worker with the charity Muslim Hands.
I think it's just really devastating because people have lost their homes. They haven't got fresh, clean water. You know, I've seen kids swimming in the water where it's got industrial waste. I just find it quite heartbreaking that they have to go through. They had everything. They had their homes, they had their career, everything like that, and then for it to all just be washed away, and now they're just living in tents.
The work by Muslim Hands is largely funded by donations from the UK.
We have the infrastructure on the ground in all 4 provinces of Pakistan, but we're completely limited by the general public's donations and generosity. And we're massively humbled at a time of economic crisis within the UK. Us and our families are feeling the strain of that. But when you come out here, it really puts things into perspective when they've literally lost everything. There is no home, there's no bedding, there's nothing for their families, and they're just living in these makeshift tents with next to nothing.
The initial threat posed by the water is obvious. People drowned, buildings were washed away. In this part of the field alone, around 1,000 homes were lost. But the water is not done there. Waterborne disease now poses a real threat. For many, it's impossible to get clean water, yet they know just how possible it is to get sick off what is often their only option. At this pop-up medical centre, mothers bring their children. Often malnourished, often crying. Doctors prescribe what they can, but an entirely safe, healthy life can't be written on paper.
My son has not been eating for many days. He won't stop crying. I know he's in discomfort. I know he's suffering.
The long queue to see a doctor repeatedly ends in the same diagnosis. Most can be linked to the water that now surrounds their lives. Typically, what are the most common diseases you're seeing here?
Mostly both problems, malnutrition problem, malaria problem, old cases are tuberculosis are there, difficulty in breathing, So many cases are here. So we are treating as per their demand. But they are sitting in camp, so properly treatment, they admit in hospital.
Well, up to 250 people are coming to this pop-up centre every day, many more of them women and children than men. They get to be seen by a doctor who will write them a prescription, who will then send them here to pick that up, many of them for malaria, skin conditions and malnutrition too. And this pop-up centre will then move around the region, helping more people. Zasa brought her son here because she doesn't have enough food to feed him.
He's really sick because he's been underfed. I don't have enough food to feed both of my children properly. He's the weak one now.
It will take many months for the water to recede fully. Even then, what state this usual fertile ground will be in is unclear. Families that have farmed this land for generations are now left with no home and no income. Only the hands of others helping them to survive.
Lewis, you can't help but be moved by those really sad scenes that we've seen in your report. And I know as journalists we try to report things as we see it. But I just wondered, what's it like in person, seeing it, and indeed seeing the work of the charity as well, who are trying to help?
Yeah, it is tough. I've certainly never seen poverty like that up close before. What is clear, as with many natural disasters, is that it is the poorest people who seem to suffer the most. Those who are struggling to survive anyway had what little they did have washed away from them. Now, the charity team from the Midlands do this around the world all the time, but they say even the sheer scale of this, 33 million people affected, means the world must act. And now at the end of this we get to go home, but of course many people here don't have homes to go to. The government have given them the equivalent of about £50 each. That doesn't seem like a lot, so the charity says it will be donations from the UK and around the world that help to rebuild people's homes and people's lives. Now, tomorrow on ITV News Central, I'll be reporting again with that charity on the displaced people from Pakistan. Many have come here to Karachi in the search of a better life and in the search of aid, but have actually received very little.
Lewis, thank you very much.